Texas is not backing down in its fight against the Biden administration over the border.
There would be times when the federal government would not live up to its duty.
Because of Texas Governor Greg Abbott's continued confrontations with the Biden administration over border controls, voters' minds will be preoccupied with topics of illegal immigration and record crossings at the United States-Mexico border before the 2024 presidential election.
There's no denying immigration has become one of the most important and contentious issues in the presidential campaign than the high-stakes fight between the state of Texas and the federal government.
Abbott's actions have resulted in legal conflicts in numerous situations, as border policy has historically and legally been the major responsibility of the federal government.
This is a big state that it's going to be even more important than it was last time.
Let's look at Texas' primary initiatives and the ongoing legal obstacles. But first, click the subscribe button. Texas has taken control of Shelby Park in Eagle Pass, a border town, and prevented the U.S. Border Patrol from entering. The park, which was once a hotspot for ball games and flea markets, has become a flashpoint in the border issue and political battles between Republicans and the Biden administration. Republican Governor Greg Abbott has sent hundreds of state police officers and National Guard troops to dissuade illegal border crossings, declaring that he intends to fence every crossing point, including those frequented by cartels. Due to contentious immigration issues, Congress has not enacted meaningful changes to border rules in decades. Over the last 2 decades, Congress has come close to reaching a bipartisan immigration agreement, but Republicans have pulled away. This includes a restricted border security package presented by Democratic and Republican senators, which Republicans voted against in the Senate. Many Republicans would rather campaign on a chaotic border than enact this bill, and they attempted to impeach the Biden administration official in charge of immigration, but failed. The border was in turmoil, with crossings at or near record levels since President Biden took office. Biden reduced deportations while attempting to implement various tactics to make it more difficult for migrants to pass, but none successfully calmed the border. Public opinion has compelled Biden to talk and do something about it, since surveys indicate that Americans trust Republicans on the border more than Democrats. Then came the border incident that prompted Governor Abbott to lock off the border. Before we get into the incident, you should subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. In December, 60 Minutes and Texas National Guard soldiers were on the Rio Grande as Mexican migrants crossed the border. They cautioned them that the crossing was unlawful and dangerous. Some migrants pleaded for assistance, while others forced children through wire.
So far this year, 5 times as many people have made this journey compared to the same period last year, and a record number of them are children.
Almost everyone crossed and entered the United States. In late December, thousands of individuals crossed the river into Texas each day, setting a record for that area of the border. The Border Patrol converted Shelby Park into an open-air detention facility. After the rush subsided, Texas Governor Greg Abbott directed the Texas National Guard to prevent Border Patrol agents from accessing the park without authorization, claiming that the federal government had failed to fulfill its responsibilities to guard the border. Abbott then implemented 5 initiatives to block off the border. The Operation Lone Star. Conservatives have hailed Texas Governor Greg Abbott's Operation Lone Star, a multi-billion-dollar border security project that began in March 2021. The initiative, which has gone beyond providing a Texas law enforcement presence on the Rio Grande, has also authorized state and local law enforcement personnel to detain migrants on trespassing charges and funded the construction of a portion of the border wall. The state military is tasked to combat drug trafficking and illegal immigration along the Texas-Mexico border, preventing the smuggling of drugs and migrants from entering the country. The Texas legislature has backed the operation by boosting smuggling fines and empowering local police to handle immigration enforcement. Civil rights organizations have requested the Justice Department to look into Operation Lone Star after thousands of migrants were imprisoned in special jail units, some for months, without being charged.
Greg Abbott is once again challenging federal authorities on the border. He's saying Texas has a right to self-defense.
Greg Abbott is now releasing new numbers on Operation Lone Star.
The SB 4 Texas enacted Senate Bill 4 making it a state offense to cross the U.S.-Mexico border without legal papers and allowing Texas to deport unauthorized immigrants. Republicans claim that this is required owing to the Biden administration's inability to stem an unprecedented flood of immigration. The Texas Department of Public Safety will perform additional vehicle safety checks at foreign ports of entry, according to Abbott. While Abbott conceded that this will dramatically slow cross-border travel, he said it is a direct byproduct of cartel operations to move people and drugs. However, a trial court suspended the legislation in February of this year, claiming it breaches the constitutional mandate that the federal government oversee immigration and the border. The conservative U.S. Court of Appeals temporarily reinstated the pause, and the Supreme Court may determine whether the statute will be put on hold while the case is heard. Eagle Pass. Eagle Pass, a remote border community in Texas, has been at the focus of a border security standoff with the federal government. Since 2021, the city has experienced an increase in migration over the Rio Grande. The governor has put in place measures to prevent migrants, such as concertina wire and river buoys, as well as having the Texas National Guard take over a municipal park. Other Republican states have dispatched troops to patrol, and plans are being developed to establish an 80-acre operations base. Despite some dissatisfaction, local elected leaders opted to allow for creeping border fortification. Rio Grande wire barriers.
And is marginally willing to do something about it. Let's be clear, putting up the concertina wire is a step in the right direction. But when people come, as foreign nationals come across the Rio Grande illegally and make their way through the concertina wire, they're still going right to Border Patrol and right into your country.
Abbott's concertina wire barriers along the Rio Grande at Eagle Pass have been utilized to prevent illegal entrance from Mexico, resulting in casualties and posing a risk to U.S. Border Patrol personnel. Texas sued the Biden administration to block border officials from destroying or cutting the barriers, and a district court agreed with them, ruling that the barriers hinder unlawful crossings and impose expenses on the state. However, the lower court refused the state's plea to prevent boundary patrol officers from crossing the international border or disrupting the barrier. Texas filed an appeal with the Fifth Circuit, which obtained a temporary restraining order banning Border Patrol personnel from cutting, destroying, or relocating the barriers. The Supreme Court ruled with the Biden administration, allowing border officials to dismantle obstacles as required while their constitutionality is determined. Sending migrants north.
The administration would put that time into securing the border as opposed to stopping Texas from securing the border, then we wouldn't have a problem whatsoever. But because Joe Biden and the Democrats refuse to secure the border, Texas has and we will continue to erect barriers, repel migrants, as well as bus and fly migrants to New York, Chicago, and other places like that.
The Texas governor launched a divisive border program by busing thousands of migrants to Democratic-led cities such as New York, Washington, and Chicago. Following the announcement, Abbott's administration confirmed that the transportation would include flying choices and be voluntary, adding that migrants must be processed, freed from federal detention, and provided DHS documents before boarding a bus or aircraft. Since April 2022, Texas has bused more than 100,000 migrants to at least 6 locations. Initially, groups that help migrants welcome the free trips. However, the enormous number is placing a burden on cities such as New York, which have traditionally welcomed immigrants from all over the world. Many migrants are unable to work while awaiting refuge, and neighbors oppose allowing migrants to live in their neighborhoods. Elected officials assert that the costs of caring for immigrants are negatively impacting their budgets. The United States Supreme Court has ordered Texas to allow federal border officers access to its border with Mexico, where officials have installed miles of concertina wire. The order reaffirms long-standing court findings that the federal government is solely responsible for border security under the Constitution.
Demanding the state allow federal agents to remove razor wire border barriers. But Texas is responding, come and take it.
The Supreme Court's 5-4 decision overturned an earlier injunction from the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals that barred Border Patrol personnel from cutting the concertina wire. Shelby Park, near Eagle Pass, has become the site of a dispute between Texas and the federal government over immigration enforcement. Governor Greg Abbott has increased border enforcement around the 47-acre park, encircling it with razor wire and restricting access to the city park. The Biden administration has frequently removed the wire that Texas had built to prevent unlawful crossings, allowing illegal immigrants in. The lack of razor wire and other deterrent techniques encourages migrants to conduct risky and illegal crossings between ports of entry, making the jobs of Texas National Guard troops and DPS troopers more dangerous and difficult. The Supreme Court's ruling allowing federal authorities to address urgent humanitarian situations and enforce our laws was applauded by the White House in a statement. Texas' political stunts, like placing razor wire near the border, simply make it harder and more dangerous for frontline personnel to do their jobs. Ultimately, we need adequate resources and policy changes to address our broken immigration system, the statement stated. That is why, on his first day in office, President Biden presented Congress with a comprehensive immigration reform plan, and that is why he is working to find a bipartisan agreement with Congress that includes additional resources and meaningful policy reforms. The U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021, introduced by Biden, has generated controversy ever since it was first proposed 3 years ago. Republicans and some Democrats have criticized Biden's handling of the border, and Congress has not been able to come to a bipartisan consensus on how to settle the matter. Tension has risen between the state and federal governments as a result of Attorney General Jeff Abbott's led Operation Lone Star. State troopers are involved in the operation. As a result of Border Patrol severing the wire to aid injured individuals, Attorney General Ken Paxton sued DHS, alleging that federal officers had unlawfully harmed state property. The matter is presently ongoing in the Fifth Circuit after Paxton's office filed an appeal against a U.S. District Court judge who had ruled with the federal government. According to a court complaint by the U.S. Department of Justice, National Guard personnel barred federal border inspectors from entering the Rio Grande on January 12th, after 3 migrants lost their lives while crossing the river, and another 2 were still having difficulty in the water. The state contradicted the federal agency's account of events, claiming that Mexican authorities had the matter under control. The injunction was issued after the Biden administration filed a stop-and-desist letter to Texas Attorney General Pat Paxton for obstructing federal access to the border. Texas has maintained its sovereignty, claiming that destroying border barriers will not assist police the law or protect American citizens. Immigration rights groups have denounced Texas officials' usage of the phrase invasion as potentially encouraging violence against Hispanics. President Joe Biden filed a second action against Texas for the deployment of floating barriers on the Rio Grande, and the Fifth Circuit ordered Texas to remove the barrier. Check out our channel for more videos like this, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't. Don't forget to give this video a like and drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.